some of you may not know is that chocolate is actually a product of fermentation. Similar to wine, beer, yogurt, sourdough, and any number of some of our favorite foods, it cannot be created without some helpful microorganisms. In the case of chocolate, the fresh fruit of the cacao plant naturally ferments quite rapidly. The only usable part left behind from this process is the seed that is then generally sun-dried, roasted, and hulled to reveal the cocoa nib. This can then be sold directly to consumers, or more likely processed into various products like cocoa powder, cocoa butter, and the various forms of chocolate. While these native microorganisms do not directly ferment the seed, there's obviously a significant influence from the fermentation, as it is a necessary step in chocolate production. Even more interesting is a recent paper that can be found in the scientific journal Current Biology that studied the microorganisms found in both coffee and cacao. Not only were these microbial communities extremely complex, but there was a good deal of variation between different regions. So, it is reasonable to suggest that this difference in microbes is a contributing factor to regional difference in subtle flavors. Obviously, similar mechanisms are found in wine and other products, but the microbial communities are considerably more complex than those found on grapes, so they may be responsible for a greater portion of the difference in the case of chocolate. Fortunately, while complex, the community in cacao is largely composed of various forms of yeast, lactic acid bacteria, and acetic acid bacteria. What Quinn intends to do is use fermenting fresh cacao as a starter for various other fermentations like cider, mead, beer, and sourdough to start. To be clear, this is not a Kickstarter to eventually sell the products of such fermentation. He's not in a position to create such a product. But the money will go toward a video series freely available on YouTube that will document the process and results of such experiments. The initial funding goal and perks are quite modest and just enough to get the bare minimum of materials. If things go well, stretch goals and more perks will be added that will expand the scope and quality of the series, such as expanding the number of fermentation experiments, scaling up production slightly, and hiring more professionals for photography and filming.